Thank you. Thank you, Zach, for getting me a stand. This is going to be tricky enough, remembering that I have to hold this mic closer to my mouth. That's the whole. I tend to use my whole body when I talk. And so this was going to be impossible. I was going to kill myself on that little narrow platform. I'm sorry, cameraman in the back, to mess you up. But I probably won't stay still. But anyway, I would like to find out in this room how many of you, say in the course of a week, have an opportunity to stand in front of a group of people or sit in front of a group of people, doesn't matter what age or how many or where, could be the supper table, it could be in your church, it could be in Starbucks, it could be anywhere, and lead them in some form, some practice for the purpose of spiritual formation. How many of you say, yes, that is me? At some point, at some point, awesome. You know how exciting it is to stand in front of a room of spiritual leaders and have an opportunity to share? That's awesome. Now, we know that group of people, whether it's your family, whether it's friends, whether it's colleagues, whether it's men and women in ministry, whether it's people that you're shepherding or discipling, they are your congregation. They're your congregation, your God-given congregation for this season of time. And we understand that congregations need to be completely and totally sold out to loving God and loving our neighbor. We understand that. We know that congregations need to be completely immersed, not just a little sprinkling, need to be completely immersed in prayer. And we know that our congregations must be founded on the word of the Lord. We know that. And I'd just like to propose for you for the next 14 and a half minutes that congregations also must be a community of faith. You see, we often assume that the words congregation and community are interchangeable, and we do it ourselves, don't we? We refer to congregations and community, we use the same word both, but the reality is that the words are not inherently synonymous. You see, you can have a congregation and not have a community of faith, right? But there is something rich and powerful that happens in a community of faith that does not happen in just a congregation. And if you want your people to truly grow in grace and love and fellowship, you must create community. You must create community. There is a social scientist, his name is Bronfenbrenner. Don't ask me how to spell it, and I probably just pronounced it incorrectly. But Bronfenbrenner, and he did research into the ecology of human development. And he concluded, what other social scientists have concluded, Vygotsky and others, that the individual is impacted and formed by their society or their community. And we understand that, right? That's why we believe in Christian education, sending our children to Christian colleges, because we know that the individual is formed and shaped by their culture, by their community. But Bronfenbrenner said also the community is formed by the individuals. That there is this give and take in that relationship, in which as the individuals are formed, the community is formed. And as the community is formed, the individuals are formed. In fact, he said that this interconnectedness, I love that word, interconnectedness, is the vehicle for growth. The vehicle for growth. It takes community. You want to see your people grow? Move beyond just being a congregation. Help them to become a community. Bonhoeffer, in his text, Life Together, phenomenal book. He says that Christian community is a gift of God's grace. It's a gift of God's grace. And he goes on to say this: the more genuine and deeper our community becomes, the more will everything else between us recede. And the more clearly and purely will Jesus Christ and his work become the one and only thing that is truly vital between us. It takes community. And Wesley, also speaking of the value of community and formation, said, "Holy solitaries," love that phrase, "holy solitaries," is a phrase no more consistent with the gospel than holy adulterers. Wow. The gospel of Christ knows no religion but social, and no holiness but social holiness. It requires community. It requires community. So, how do we get this? How do we create community? How does that happen? Are there transferable guidelines that we could look at, that we could say, these are some guiding principles in order to create community out of our congregations? Are there some things that we can look at? And the reality is that there are many. I'm not going to list them all. Over the next couple of minutes, I think I have maybe 10. Over the next couple of minutes, I'll try to talk fast. I'm going to look at 3, as long as time holds. We're going to look at 3. 3 ways. You see, in order to create community, we need to have something in common. We need to have something in common. Your congregation, when I asked you how many of you stand in front, did you get a picture of people in your mind? Did you see them? Did you see them sitting around the table, or sitting in their chairs, or sitting in their pews? Did you see them? See them again. See where they sit, look at their faces, see their posture, get them in your mind's eye. Because you need to be thinking about those people as we talk together. How do you get those people to be a community of faith? How do you get them to do it? You need to have a common purpose. You need to have a common purpose. Why do you gather together? What is the reason? What is the thing that calls you together? If your purpose, your common purpose, is not known, if it is not clear to all who gather, you know what happens? Every individual purpose tries to become the purpose, and they fight for supremacy. Have you ever seen that happen in congregations? Yes. They fight for supremacy. It's vital that our purpose is common. And as a spiritual leader, it's your responsibility to help chart the course for that common purpose, and to make it clear, and to make it succinct, and to make it measurable, and to make it known. A common purpose. You have to have something that pulls you together. Blevins and Maddox suggested congregational formation's function, its purpose, is to build up, to shape communities of faith that serve God and love neighbors. Why? For the sake of transforming their world. Who's your world? That congregation in your mind's eye, who's their world? And what transformation needs to take place in that world? What Blevins and Maddox were saying is that we do local formation to create global transformation. That's why we gather. What does that look like in your community of faith? And your people need to own it, and you need to repeat it, because it needs to be known. A common purpose. A common ritual. A common ritual. Rituals are corporate actions that we do that carry meaning. Corporate actions that we do together that carry meaning, and they're done routinely. Meaning and routine makes a ritual. Think in your mind's eye, what are some common rituals? Maybe you practice them, maybe you have practiced them, maybe you know somebody who does. Anybody? Common rituals. Communion. Excellent. Communion. Now you think about the ritual of communion, of when they do communion and how they do communion. Why? Is there a meaning behind how and when you do it and why? We should know the why. And do your people know what the meaning is of the ritual? What else? What are other rituals? Baptism, exactly, and the same thing with communion. Anybody else? Thank you! Meet and greet, and you love to do it, don't you, Dr. Benz? That's right, meet and greet. Coffee in the lobby. Coffee in the lobby can be a ritual. Donuts for Sunday school class can become a ritual, right? All the practices we have, Easter egg hunts can become a ritual. We do them every year. We do them the same way, right? All the things that we do on a routine basis and have meaning become ritual. But the ritual has to have purpose, right? Westerhoff in his text, Will Our Children Have Faith? A wonderful text. Brief little book that'll take you a long time to read. And that's why it's good. Westerhoff. He suggested that there is no community without ritual. You can't have one without the other. And then he says that people are made for ritual, and ritual makes people. It's good. People are made for ritual. They long for it. Those people in your congregation are longing for ritual. Something meaningful to do and routinely. Do you have rituals? Westerhoff also said that by their rituals you will know them. In other words, our rituals define who we are. And they describe who we are. So you have a visitor come to your church, or come to your small group, or come to your Bible study, and they see you act out your rituals that you might not even be aware are a ritual. But they see you act them out. What do those rituals say to that visitor about your community? What do they say you value? What do they say you believe in? What do they say that you teach? What do they say is a priority? Do you know? Are you aware? Think in your mind's eye, that group, that congregation, what are the rituals that you do? You need to have common rituals, but they need to have value. And they need to be meaningful. Help your people discover meaningful rituals that you do routinely. It will help build community. And then we need a common story. A common story. Those faces that you had in your mind's eye, those individuals, they each have a story, a faith story. And we understand that for individual spiritual formation, it's really critical that our people are able to articulate their story, right? That's part of our discipleship process, is to get them to articulate their story. And not only be able to articulate it, but be able to share it, right? We understand that. Well, the same is true for a community of faith. For a community of faith to grow, it needs to be able to articulate its story. And it needs to be able to share it. What's your community of faith's story? Do you know? I see some of my students in the room. And when you've been in class with me, you know what week 2, one of your assignments is go interview a couple of people and ask them, what's this church's story? Right? Why do you do what you do? Tell me the history. Tell me the meaning behind the rituals. Why? Because it gives you a glimpse into what their story is. It's critical that we understand what the story has been. The story brings meaning because we know that our past experiences impact our current action. Why do people do what they do? If it doesn't make any sense to you, ask them about their story. I'm guessing they have one. My parents have a story. If you would visit my mom and dad's house and you would walk into their kitchen and you would open their pantry, you would go, oh my word. It's so loaded, it's not even funny. The wooden shelves are bowing. And yet my mom continues to go to Sam's Club. She loves it there because you can get 36 cans of corn in one shot. 2, I was going to say middle-aged, I'm middle-aged. They're way beyond middle-aged. 2 way beyond middle-aged individuals who do not consume nearly enough food in a year to supply that closet. And they have no fear of a food shortage. Marsh is always open. They have no fear of a financial shortage. They've done very well for themselves. They have no fear of a natural disaster. Why on earth are they stockpiling cans of corn? It seems ridiculous to me. And I tease my mom on a regular basis about it. You know why my mom and dad stockpile cans of food? Because they have a past experience that influences their current action. When they were children, they lived with the pangs of hunger in their belly, and that memory will not leave them, and that memory impacts how they act today. Your people have a memory. They have a past experience, and it's impacting how they act today. Do they act in a way that is crazy? Why on earth do these people do this? As a new pastor, you come to a new congregation, right? And you sit back and you say, why on earth do they do the things they do? That makes no sense. And of course, being a good steward, we decide we're going to cut away all of the stuff that is not valuable. Right? The rituals, the practices, the programs that aren't making a difference. That's what God's called me here to do. Move these people along. And that has no meaning to me. Ouch. You need to ask them why. You need to hear their story. You see, a good gardener knows that pruning in ignorance, and I am a gardener who prunes in ignorance. Pruning in ignorance is disastrous. You need to hear their story. Not only do you need to hear their story, because they have a story from the past, and you need to help them recapture it. They might not know why they do what they do anymore. You need to help them discover that. You need to help them recapture that. Then you need to help them find words to retell their story. And because we do not live in the past, we need to help them create a new story or a continuing story and a story for tomorrow. How do you create community? You need to give them a common story, and they need to be able to tell it. A common story. We have this incredible privilege, you and I. Incredible privilege to stand in front of individuals and be spiritual leaders in some way or another. It might be leading in prayer. It might be leading in a song. It might be leading in a Bible story. It might be leading in a casual conversation around a dinner table. But we have these opportunities to be spiritual leaders to congregations, and it is vital that we don't allow them to just be a congregation. We want them to be a community of faith. We need a common purpose. We need a common ritual. And then we need a common story, at least. What are yours? What are yours?